you want to know what it is? Born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
In the 1990s, an Italian Native American who presented himself as Albert Most claimed to have been the first person to extract the poison out of the Bufo alvarius toad in the Sonoran Desert and smoked it. Albert is an extremely interesting man. His real name is Alfred Salvinelli, the man who created the religion of the Church of the Toad of Light, advertising it through none other than t-shirts and pamphlets he regards as his Bibles. Albert, or Alfred, was mentored by a Native American tribe who first introduced him to psychedelics. In an interview with Vice, he reports that the tribe would teach him to first eat the brain of the bear they had just hunted down to feel its psychoactive effects.
Watch a cat toy with a mouse. The cat will eat the brain of the mouse first because it's juiced up with all those endorphins and chemicals. In the archaic and native traditions, hunters had wisdom that if you take a bear, chase it, club it, stab it, and then take it into a cave, their brains were consumed.
Under the Yaqui tribe, toads were often seen as gods, as the tribes would pray to them to provide rains for their crops and many other things. Albert claims to have been, in the 1990s, the first documented person ever to have smoked the God molecule, or 5-MEO DMT, which many consider to be the strongest psychoactive drug on the planet. He describes the experience as one that would make an atheist believe in God.
Just the death of your ego. When your ego died, I felt so naked and afraid at that particular time because that's all I really had when you really think about it was my ego.
The God molecule itself is collected from the pineal gland of the Bufo alvarius toad.
Within just 5 to 15 minutes, you will experience God and yourself as absolute infinity.
Some say that the toads produce 5-MeO to poison any predators as it lives in the desert under very harsh conditions. There are reports that the toads have to stay underground for over 3/4 of any given year to survive. Others, like Dr. Octavio Rettig, a man who has devoted his entire life to studying the God molecule, or sapo as it's also called, say that the toad uses this chemical messenger as a language used by nature to translate messages. Regardless of its origin and use, the psychoactive substance gives humans God-like symptoms upon ingestion.
Resucitar el espíritu, hasta el más insignificante de las cosas del universo empiezas a amarlo. Así es la energía del sapito. El sapo no se muere, pues. Si le saca la sustancia, se suelta y se va. Y va, come y se reproduce más.
The key to the God molecule's success is often what people call ego death. Many describe this experience as everything and nothing at the same time. 5-MeO DMT is said to bring people to a rare nirvana-like state where for 5 to 15 minutes, people have an experience of like dying and being reborn again, realizing that ego isn't the most important part of one's reality.
Once I realized that I'm nothing, yeah. I realized all my fancy clothes, my big car. Yeah, my whole life totally changed. It sounds like a movie script, but it's really the real deal.
Dr. Octavio Rettig is an extremely interesting man. What makes the God molecule so powerful is that it's released by the toad's pineal gland. Everybody has a pineal gland, but according to Dr. Rettig, expert in psychedelics, the human pineal gland only ever produces DMT at 2 key moments in one's life. When one is born and right before one dies. To him, this is why people claim they can see God or have other crazy experiences right before they die. The most curious thing about this drug is that it leads to what some would describe as a permanent trip. Although the effects largely disappear after 20 minutes after ingestion, many people claim that right after taking the drug, they are in a permanent state of higher understanding. In a TEDx talk, Dr. Octavio Rettig claimed that this molecule can not only get rid of drug addictions, but it is also being said to help addictions to sex, gambling, and other addictive behaviors. It elevates the frequency, it removes the aspect of competitiveness, and it helps understand that money and selfishness aren't the only things on Earth. During the last century, many tribes in Mexico, including the Seri tribe, have been plagued by drug addictions, often crack or crystal meth. Not only is Sapo not addictive, it also helped many people like the Seris to get rid of their addictions to drugs and achieve higher purpose. Although Dr. Octavio Retic assures us that the drug is relatively safe and that no one has ever overdosed or poisoned themselves, there have been reports of people having died due to complications because of mixing drugs, poisoning, or drowning. But most of these deaths could have been avoided if the experience had been in a controlled environment. However, the history goes deeper than this. Despite reports that Alfred Most was the first non-native person to have discovered the drugs, the report of it having been found years before he was born, even decades. John Mann created another religion in 1971, devoting himself fully to the God molecule. However, psychoactive drugs have been used for centuries before, even millennia. More than 2,000 years ago, Greeks and Romans that included the likes of Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and even MEO reported that they had been taking LSD-like substances called kykeon, derived from a fungus, not a toad. However, 5-MeO is comparatively way stronger than any other available psychedelic. There are reports that the God molecule is 10 to 20 times stronger than any regular DMT, permanently raising consciousness to the highest possible point. Some like to think of it as the Matrix's red pill. Every single one of your beliefs is shattered. Total psychological and ideological death. Many describe this experience as the end of the world as you know it. Although it's difficult to describe, people see themselves as physically being God all-knowing, yet at the same time not knowing anything. Others say that they have met God face to face and finally understood something that was previously intangible. Dr. Sandoval, a gynecologist, compares this experience to that of the birth of a baby. As often, whoever is taking the drug screams and moves uncontrollably, sometimes having seizures before eventually coming to a long, silent peace and being born. It gives its consumer a feeling of everythingness and nothingness at the same time, sometimes even allowing him to meet God. However, each experience is different. Some people simply refuse not to take the drug, but to surrender fully to the drug, as they have underlying burdens that don't allow them to fully relax and give their spirit to the God molecule.
It takes you to another level. Ayahuasca is nothing compared to this.
For these people, the experience can be bad, and even sometimes traumatic. I do not recommend taking 5-MeO, but experts say that this should only be taken after heavy preparation, meditation, and spiritual awareness. It is not a trip, but rather an experiment.
So 5-MeO will blast you into absolute infinity, but you still have control. And if you decide that you don't want to go to absolute infinity, if you decide that you're going to hold back and you're just going to sit in your little ego and that you're not ready to die and all this kind of stuff, if you get egotistical, once you've taken the substance, that's going to be like pushing the gas full throttle in your car and hitting the brakes right after.
The God molecule is an incredibly complex and interesting compound that is yet to be fully understood, even by the tribes that have been smoking it for centuries, but it remains one of the most sought after and intriguing psychedelics to exist. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning the bell notification on for more future content like this.